Stimulating talk with Dave Elswick, 101.1 FM. The Answer.
This is the Dave Elswick Show, and I am Robert Steinbuch, filling in for Dave this Thursday morning. We have on the air with us two fantastic individuals, Chris Corbett, professional engineer and attorney, and State Senator Kim Hammer. And we're talking with Senator Hammer right now about free speech and important notions of protecting the rights of everyone. And that's one of the things that I value about Senator Hammer is that he represents all Arkansans, well, of course, those in his district in particular, but he's not about representing those on the right or the left. He pursues conservative values, but he believes in protecting everyone. And that's true. What true conservatives do, they protect the interests of all people. The leftists seem overwhelmingly focused on protecting only leftists. We were talking about a variety of issues. We've got Second Amendment, that are gun rights. We talked about free speech on campus. Kim, you were one of the lead proponents, the lead sponsors last time of the free speech on campus bill, which of course passed with overwhelming support. I've already spoken with other state senators and you about looking over that bill to see if there is any room to further enhance that. So I don't want to sort of put you on the spot yet before we've completed that analysis on that, but what I want to ask you more broadly, what is your attitude about free speech on campus, in particular, given the importance of academia in molding the minds of the young?
Sure. And let me start off by saying this, in areas like free speech on campus or, like trying to hold the media accountable for their actions, even though they are afforded rights under the First Amendment, they also have some responsibilities under the First Amendment, too. Anytime that you take on a battle like this and you're trying to regain ground that you've lost or you're trying to get ground in order to take you to the back, in the right direction, it can be a long game, not a short game. Every once in a while you score a victory that has some immediate results and impact, but, for the most part, it's a process of doing it over a period of time, kind of like pro-life. We were just recognized as the number one pro-life state in the nation, and that came, probably as a result of a 10 to 20-year battle in the legislature. So, people need to understand that as long as we're making effort and moving in the positive direction, gaining ground a little at a time, ultimately we will get there as long as we keep the right people in office that are going to, be of like-mindedness. Free speech on campus, no exception. Gained some ground last time, but I think, as you hear reports back from students that have their opinions, or their free speech violated, maybe in the classroom because a professor doesn't agree with their position, either conservative or liberal, either one. It can happen both ways. I think that's where we need to turn some attention, is to make sure that students who are paying, that university and subsequently those professors having their salaries paid by those students, they are the customers. I think that's where we need to, focus some attention to make sure that no professor in any institution is utilizing the power of their position to quiet the voice of their students if they have a different opinion other than that of the professor or the stated policy of the university.
It's such a wonderful, and I mean this, sort of aware notion. The left always likes to say they're woke, they're aware, but it's conservatives who are aware of the fact that the left has a bubble of reality, and they're unwilling to allow discourse from those that disagree with them. And this is, as you say, the long game. We've got to continue to fight for such notions. And you aptly also bring up an important point about responsibility of the press. It's one thing to make a small mistake here or a small mistake there, but I recently watched both the movie about Richard Jewell, and then there was a Netflix series, I think it was actually taken from ABC or something like that, a series about Richard Jewell and the guy that did the bombing at the Atlanta Olympics. And it's really remarkable when we see fake news. It's a term sort of developed by President Trump, but a term that applies far more broadly. Richard Jewell was a good man who saved lives, and the press made him out, by the way, in somewhat conjunction with some essentially corrupt FBI agents, made him out to be the bad guy for a long time. And that was really some awful behavior. So we need to recognize that there is some responsibility for the press and others as well. And we can't let them off the hook when they are just making it up. And so you have been vigilant on that point as well, and I applaud you on that. Would you like to say anything more on that topic, by the way?
Well, the only thing I might say is this goes back to where we started our conversation earlier, and that's the challenge of free speech. You have to allow the unpleasant things to be said, but I think that comes back to what are you willing to do to be an example or to be a louder voice in order to make sure that the truth is heard. And then it's up to the individual to decide what they want to believe, and they have to live with the consequences of what they choose to believe. If you want to believe what the liberal left is promoting, well, hang on. You're going to get everything that comes with it. If you want to choose to believe what the conservative right believes, then you're going to get a blessing because of it, because it aligns with what I think the Constitution had in mind. The question is, we don't need to limit the ability for free speech in any capacity in order to get all those ideas out there and expressed. But then we have a responsibility as a conservative right to make sure that people understand the benefit and the values of choosing to go right instead of liberal left. Sometimes you got to step back, or you don't have any choice, kind of like with the fraud that's going on in the elections of President Trump and everything that's occurring there. And you have to take corrective action and just try to minimize damage in the meantime. And I'm afraid that's the direction we're heading. But to the point of free speech, I think also has to have that degree of accountability that if you do something under free speech which presents harm to somebody else because of your actions, that's the tight line. That's the tight wire we've got to walk as far as how much do you allow people to have free speech, but hold them accountable if in their act of free speech it harms or hurts somebody else and there's no checks and balances. And that is always a difficult task to achieve that without going over the line.
Indeed, it's such a wonderful statement of such core conservative principles, and that is, it draws this distinction implicitly between opinion and fact. And if the media comes out and says Richard Jewell was the bomber when he in fact was the hero, that's incorrect fact, and they need to be responsible. But if we say, well, we believe in traditional marriage, or we don't believe, or the left says we don't believe in traditional marriage, that's opinion. And each side is entitled to their view. And that's this critical distinction that we must protect. We must protect the fact that you're entitled to any view you want, even if we think it's a terrible view, even if we think it's a bad view, even if we think it's an immoral view, and vice versa. The left has to allow us to have our views, even if they think our views are bad, immoral, whatever they want to call them. But we're not entitled to our own facts.
So Rob, he brings up
Go ahead, Chris.
Senator Kim, you bring up such a great point, and the reason it's more important now is because you don't have to have $1 million printing press and barrels of ink to put something out there for people to read. People can throw stuff out there, and everybody can read. The whole world.
That is such an important point that, Chris, you raised, which is that it used to be that the media controlled what people heard. Now we're all the media, right? And that's why, Kim, your bill about allowing government employees to go home and say what they want to say on Facebook without being punished is so critical, because now we all have some ability to communicate, but only if we're not punished by a government that may want to constrain what we're saying. And to be clear, when I say a government, I really mean some mid-level, often leftist bureaucrat that wants to say you can't say on your Facebook post that you're for traditional marriage. We have actual examples of these things happening. I think there was a sheriff in some county, not in Arkansas necessarily, whose wife put something on Facebook, and the sheriff got in trouble because some mid-level bureaucrat didn't like what his wife was saying, no less. And that's what we need to be ever vigilant in, because when it comes to this kind of speech, it is, I think, the conservatives who are under attack far more than the leftists, because the leftists, unfortunately, are embedded in the levers of power in academia, in the mid-level bureaucracy throughout state and local government. And so we need to ensure that these rights don't only exist on paper, but they are enforceable. And that's why when we look at the bills that Senator Hammer has proposed over time, in the long game, as he says, we see this effort grow to continually improve the situation in which we are. Kim, what do you see as coming up as important this coming legislative session?
It's like any other legislative session. There's some good things you want to get behind. There's some bad things you want to get stopped. And that's, everybody thinks that it's going down and passing bills when in reality, a lot of it is stopping bills from going through that don't need to go through. And so obviously the one at, top of a lot of people's list is regarding the hate crime legislation. The feedback I get from my constituents and just people, that kind of keep their ear to the stone is that, we don't need it. So that'll probably be a contentious battle there if it, goes forward to get filed. I've got a bill with Representative Gazaway dealing with the emergency powers of the administrative branch. It's not going to be, an attack bill. It's really taking what we've learned over the last 9 months and are still learning for that matter, and looking to the future to see what can we do different to make sure that the legislative branch has leverage points where we have weigh in and we can have the authority to do some things such as terminate the emergency or selectively pick apart what the emergency covers. Right now we're having to be reactive around the sidelines, and we think that the legislative branch needs to be more involved in the process whenever a declaration of emergency is declared and it affects a statewide level. And so I've got a bill, prepared to do that. Some of the conservative ones we've talked about, are going to be brought back up for consideration. One positive thing as a result of the emergency powers is there's a lot of things that some of us been saying could be done all along. Being told by the other side, no, you can't do it. And all of a sudden under the emergency powers, we're able to do things that we couldn't have done otherwise, specifically with regard to medical field. And that's big because we need to get off being number 47, 49, and we need every tool in the toolbox we can to, make access to care greater and treatment, for disease better. And so there's some positive things coming out of that. It's going to be a pretty aggressive session because we're going to be trying to get in and out as quick as we can so we don't have an outbreak of COVID among the legislative branch or our employees or anybody coming in there. So, we're going to be pretty aggressive about getting in there, getting to work, and trying to get everybody's business taken care of as quickly as we can. I'll stop there and ask if that kind of covers your question.
Well, it's fantastic. Why don't we do this? We're going to hold you over for one more segment. I know you're real busy, but we'll keep you till the top of the hour. So, Heidi, why don't we take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll focus in on one or two of the issues that Senator Kim Hammer has brought up for this coming legislative session.
Hey, science needs you. That's right, you. You listening right now? Healthy volunteers are needed for a COVID-19 vaccine clinical research study. The study is now enrolling right here in Central Arkansas. If you want to help them research an investigational vaccine for COVID-19, now's the time for you to get involved. By participating in this clinical trial, you'll have access to no-cost study-related care. You'll also have the opportunity to help advance COVID-19 research. research. No insurance is required to take part. You don't have to pay anything. If you're an adult who is in good or stable health, you may be able to qualify. If you're interested in learning more, then call this number, 501-954-7822. That's 501-954-7822.
Take The Answer with you anywhere with our free mobile app, 1011fmtheanswer.com. Tune in, iHeart, or radio.com. Breaking news and stimulating talk. 101.1 FM, The Answer.
The leaves are falling. There's a chill in the air. You're bundled up, but you need something more to keep you warm. It's time for coffee. I used to get mine from the impersonal fast food type big chain coffee shops too, but then I found River City Coffee and I got rid of those chains. River City Coffee has been locally owned for over 4 decades, and their silky smooth coffee is roasted right here in Central Arkansas. River City Coffee in historic Hillcrest on Kavanaugh in Little Rock. For more information, go to rivercitycoffeelr.com. River City Coffee, where the quirky get caffeinated.
Oh, yeah, I'm much better now. Most of the physical effects are gone. They said it was a bad case of the heebie-jeebies. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. But thanks to the bug man, no more heebie-jeebies. I can even put stuff on the countertops again. I just wish I'd called sooner.
Call the Bugman for your own happy home at 663-9464 or go to bugman.com. The Bugman has been in business since 1976. Your satisfaction is their only contract.
The holidays will be different this year. Also different is the way you have been and will be doing business. Adapting to the changes hasn't been easy, but never more important to succeed. Many of the digital resources available have helped overcome obstacles your business is facing, but are you using the full potential of every one of them? That's where Salem Surround can help. Your business needs to use digital tools more than ever to stay in touch with customers who are still making buying decisions this year and for next. Will they consider or even know about you? The marketing team at Salem Surround gives you the tools needed to stand out and be visible to current and potential customers online right now looking for what you do. We'll design a plan that targets and surrounds customers with proven marketing strategies. Contact Salem Surround for a free evaluation of your marketing plan and see how we can help place your advertising message in front of today's consumers. Learn more at surroundlittlerock.com. surroundlittlerock.com. Connecting you with new customers.
I sure would like to send my child to Central Arkansas Christian or maybe a Villa Christian school.
I'd like my child to go to Bingham Road Baptist Church Academy or Cornerstone Montessori Christian School, but I'm just not sure I can afford it.
I've got good news for both of you. We have half-price scholarships available now for each school you just mentioned. And in addition to a half-price scholarship, we also have easy monthly payments available to help you afford the remaining investment in your child's education. But we only have a limited number of these scholarships available, so call now for more information. Call us during normal business hours at 501-404-6545, and we'll guide you through the simple steps to take you on the way to a better education for your child. Half-price tuition, easy monthly payments, a great education. Call now, 501-404-6545. Call during business hours, 501-404-6545.
Well, there's not much more that can be said about 2020 besides we're glad that's over. And now we're on to a fresh start, new beginnings, a new horizon, and with it, the hope of better things to come. Yeah, we know 2021 will still have some bumps, but we're with you the whole way to keep you informed with real, honest answers to the questions of 2021. So stick with us. We've got you covered. Happy New Year. 101.1 FM, The Answer. Dave's back. The lines are open. 501-823-0965. The Dave Elswick Show. 101.1 FM. The Answer.
This is the Dave Elswick Show. I am Robert Steinbuch, filling in for Dave. On the line with us for only another 4 minutes or so is State Senator Kim Hammer. So, Kim, first I'd like to thank you for joining us here on the show, and I would like to remind listeners that you have a show on 101.1 FM, The Answer, on Saturday. It starts at, is it at noon that your show generally starts at?
Noon to 1 o'clock. We go from noon to 1.
Terrific. So tune in then to hear more. Absolutely. Tune in more to hear more from State Senator Kim Hammer. And so in the few minutes that we have left, we are talking about a significant amount of legislation that we are going to try, we as conservatives are going to try to pass, as well as some of the legislation that we think is harmful to Arkansans that we are going to try to stop. So why don't you take one or two of the most salient ones and tell us about that in the few minutes we have left. We may not get to complete it.
Sure. I think one thing that would probably be most relevant to people, because it's in the news every day, is the matter of elections. And when we see what's happened out in Georgia and other states, wisdom on the part of the administrative branch, legislative branch, Secretary of State's office here in Arkansas, that we did not allow the mail ballots that other states have done, which we now know has created corruption and fraud. So we will be looking at election laws, and there are some indicators that would show that some of that attitude in Georgia and Detroit are alive and well here in the state of Arkansas. And so we're going to have some legislation that's going to do some scalpel surgery to make sure that that doesn't get any headway, and make sure that our election process is transparent, fair, and everything that Arkansans expect will be protected in the way of legislation that holds people accountable in the election process. So, we've got some ongoing litigation that would reflect that there's been some issues. We've got some evidence and reports of some other things, and so we're going to nip it in the bud, as Barney or whoever used to say that. We're going to nip it, and get some legislation addressed to take care of that. Some of the other things, we just got some random things that I'm going to be working on. Dealing some with the amount of money that's spent by political offices, where that funding stream has come either through settlements or has come through tax-related things. I think, one thing people have said to some of us is, we want transparency when it comes to some of the advertising that's on TV, as far as identifying the funding source for it, or taking a look at where some of the money's coming from and how it's being spent, and is it, should it be brought before the legislature for appropriation. And so we've got some areas that we're looking at in there. Got another bill. We got some state employees that are not able to take their full amount of time off when they work because of high turnover rates in some agencies. They go out, they work, they don't get the full benefit of the PTO time that they build up. They lose it at the end of the year. Personally, I don't think that's right. I think that, if you work an hour, you got to get paid for an hour. And if you get an hour PTO time, you got to get an hour PTO time, and it shouldn't be, put into even though it's a good thing, a catastrophic bank to be used by other people that have less fortunate situations occur. At the end of the day, if you're asked to work, you can't take off from working. I think you need to be paid for the time that you put in. And so we're looking at that. Representative Wooten and I, he's the lead on this. We're actually looking at the budgeted, unbudgeted positions that are carried on the books by the state of Arkansas, and we're trying to look at what we can do to trim back some of those numbers without any adverse effects. And so we're taking a look at the number of the unbudgeted and budgeted positions that are, on the are held by the various agencies. So
All right. State Senator, thank you so much for joining us. You can catch the Kim Hammer Show every Saturday from noon to 1 p.m.